Hi, I'm Vebrik. There's bird crap on my shoulder. And I'm going to be walking you through my track 8i out now on. The track begins with an intro made of a random sample I found on YouTube, which then transitions into audio I recorded some psychedelic or something. Now, these samples right here were made in Palindrome, which is a very, very good plugin by Glitch Machines. They're actually just stock samples because they sounded really good, they fit the song, and they just sounded sick. Now, in the intro part, we have some interesting stuff going on with the drums here. I'll just isolate these for a second. So first with these, we have these like kind of like triangle sounds. And then on top we have these hi-hats and these little ride open hat things. Up here we've got two 808 layers. This first one is a really kind of gritty, hard-hitting layer, and then we have a more conventional sub-layer. We have these glitchy hi-hats, which were from Elon Moore's samples. Great musician, highly advise checking him out. Then we have these off-grid, chopped-up hi-hats. Then with the drums, firstly we have just a kick sample from my friend Return, and a cymatic snare. And then over here we actually have what kind of adds that like kind of swooshing effect to the snare, which is another chopped up Elon Moore sample. And then altogether that really just comes together to make this interesting sounding intro. Next, this melody here is it was made in Massive X. It's actually, once again, a preset that I edited in post. It is playing in the key of B minor, which is not typical actually for bass music, but it just really suited the track with the heavy-hitting 808s I found. And in post, I actually have a gross beat, which causes the glitching, which I personally think just really adds to the sound, makes it nice and kind of crunchy and all that. Now, this part here was actually inspired by Tool and their track Fear Inoculum. In the intro, they have this tremolo effect going on with the guitar, so I tried to emulate that using only MIDI stuff. So here we have an FL Studio stock guitar sample playing a pretty simple melody running into a bias effects, fruity balance, and an EQ. The EQ is just cutting the lows. The bias effects is... let's get that lowered up. Bias effects is a recreation of Adam Jones' guitar tone. And it's then once it'll fucking load. It is basically a noise gate running into a overdrive pedal with a 92 VH4 amp, mid gain, boosted mids, slightly high presence, standard master volume, running into a triplate cabinet with an SM57, and then an EQ, which is basically just leveling everything out a bit more, slightly lowering the highs and lows a bit. And then that's going into a reverb. And then that layered with the melody. Got some, it's following basically the pattern of the melody. It's descending notes. Down here we have the sub layers. basic sub with some distortions just to fatten it up. And then over here we actually have a really heavily distorted white noise with some sub. So I just basically took a Virtual Riot sub preset, added some white noise, put a Camel Crusher and an EQ on it. And for the other bass, or for the other sub, it's literally just a Virtual Riot sub with a some EQing, low cutting it at around 38 Hz and a tad bit of boost just for that first harmonic. And this is just another Alan Moore sample that I just chopped up. It's basically just this cool-ass, wet-sounding sample with some EQ on it. Boost the mids a bit. Give it a tad bit more power and all that. And then altogether that comes together to make this. Alright, on to the build-up. So the build-up drums are just basic ascending kick pattern. Just bringing on a bit more force. I actually have the entire Watermelon sample here. As you can see, it's just really watery, but it also has some nice, cool transient stuff. Bringing back the glitchy hats. And here we actually have the drop processing and stuff, which is getting slowly filtered in. That's the wrong filter. Here we have some, I believe it was made in albino. Yeah. It's a Noisia preset in albino, which is just a really fat bass sound. Then we have this kind of little riser I made in, I believe, Farmer. Yeah. And it's essentially just running through the unison phase and panning and the thickness of the pitch and stuff. So it goes from like this really kind of almost dirty sounding rising bass almost into this like chorusy, rich sounding thick riser near the end. Then we have this sound, which is also not turned on. This is another albino patch. It basically just adds to it. How do you... Oh, the plug. Fuck. So yeah, this does nothing, apparently. We've got some just standard effects kind of filling all that. We're bringing back these cool sounds and this this little reversed kind of insect sound I got off a splice. Then we've just got a cymatics build-up loop that I'm really only using just for the snare little bits between the drums. Altogether, that sounds like this. Also brought back the melody and some elements from the intro to help kind of glue it together with the rest of the track. Now we get into the drops. So the drums are the exact same as the intro, but what I really want to talk about is how I made these sounds. So what these are is really stretched out and just kind of messed with a bunch of different effects, like effector for some delay, phaser, flanger, some distortion, just a bunch of stuff to kind of crisp it up, make it sound really glitchy and weird. And it's just a bunch of samples that I kind of just picked from a bunch of cymatics packs, I think, and edited. And then in the second half we get these samples. I actually recorded my own voice just doing some kind of incoherent wails and edited them further from there. On below that we also have these little kind of like glitchy sounds, which kind of just help to fill up the mix and add some more kind of driving power behind the drop. And aside from that, it's just basically the drums from the intro and some really fat 808 sounds and Now, in the second drop, I made this little Eliminate-esque kind of bleep blop sound in a different project. It is just heavily resampled, heavily distorted percussion loops with a lot of post effects, as you can obviously hear. I'm pretty sure I ran it through Tavern Drone a few times. On here I've got just a fat rack, a disperser, some phase distortion, just kind of add to some parts later in the drop. You can hear the grit coming around here. And then on top of that, we just have chopped up versions of this sound, which just kind of also helps glue it together first. And then, aside from that, everything below it is just the same as the first drop, with some slight variations in the hats and all that. So then we just get this. And then for this ending, I just have the same kind of club sound, faintly layered with this walking sample I got from one of the Life cymatics packs. And then at the end, I just have these samples from Virtual Riot, kind of closing out the track with a nice reverb tail made in Valhalla Shimmer. And yeah, that's basically the whole track. The mastering for it, I essentially just ran Ozone 9 and I used Moody Good's track Anti-Acid as a reference for it. So what I essentially did is I just loaded that into the reference area over here. And it basically just did the mastering like that. For the mix downs, I kind of just mix as I go, so I don't really know what I'm doing. There's nothing super special about it. It's kind of just basic EQing on most of these. I've got 3 bus tracks at the end. All of them are low cut, so that we don't get any clash with the main sub-channel over here, which is kind of boosted a bit. And then we have an extra effects channel, which I kind of just use for stuff that doesn't really fit into any of these 3 categories here. And the kick and snare, so basically these 3 get routed into here, and I usually have some extra compression just to kind of keep the dynamics in check, but it didn't really need it in this case. In most other tracks, though, I usually pop a compressor on here. Not a pitcher, just a fruity compressor, adjust the threshold ratio, drop the attack, adjust the gain, put it on hard R because, you know. And yeah. I spent around 3 hours, 53 minutes on this, but most of the stuff was made in another project, so I'd say conservatively, total amount of time was around 6 hours. And yeah, that's 8L.